So we understand, of course, it's very exciting times for transport in your regions. And I'd really like to get into a couple of key areas with you. Of course, your transport priorities, and also how you see transport as an enabler for your wider ambitions for your region. Ladies and gentlemen, also, can you have your questions ready at about 1:45? Because we'll, have some time to get some questions. I know that you want to get those in. I would say we're going to run it like a question time sort of format. So if you can keep them not too specific to any particular authority, that would be really great. But we will have time to get some questions in. Okay, Tracy, would you kick off proceedings for us, please, with outlining the transport priorities for West Yorkshire?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for the invitation to be here today, this morning. It's so amazing to see so many people interested in transport in the north. And we are all going to be partners over the next decade delivering this ambitious infrastructure. For those that don't know, West Yorkshire, Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, Huddersfield, Halifax, 2.4 million people, 7 universities, 7 FE colleges, nearly 100,000 businesses, home of the NHS, the youngest population in the UK, where 38% of the population are under 30. However, our productivity gap is 11 billion. It's utterly shocking and unacceptable. If you want growth, if that is the exam question given to us by this government, transport is absolutely the answer. Now, we have taken the decision to bring buses back into public control. September 2022, we brought in the £2 mayor's fare. It's going to go up to £2.50 at the end of this month. We're using our CRSTS money to expand the network to make sure that people can use buses across our region while we bring it into public control. Alongside that, we have a really ambitious programme that we're underway on for mass transit, a tram for the whole of West Yorkshire. Now, we've tried twice before, and the naysayers in the room might be like, oh, we've been here before. But the problem before was that it was just Leeds. This is about connecting the whole of our region. And the first phase is connecting Leeds and Bradford. Now, Leeds and Bradford, two huge cities, together the size of Estonia, disconnected. We are underway with spades in the ground by 2028, so you're going to be part of this journey on north from Leeds to Bradford, going past the hospital and out to Bradford with a new through station in Bradford, regeneration around the Southern Gateway in Bradford City Village, a tram stop right in the heart of the city centre, and then south past the football, onto White Rose and down to Kirklees and to Dewsbury. This is going to be a game changer, unlocking regeneration, housing, opportunity, because it can't be right that those clever young people in Bradford, the highest number of AI, data analytics postgrads in the country, can't get to those great jobs in Leeds. It is totally wrong. So we've got buses back into public control, mass transit, but as you've heard from Andy, we've also got plans to bring in our overground network, which, for example, leads to Ilkley or the 5 towns in Wakefield, but also working with David Skaith in York and North Yorkshire and my brilliant colleague Oliver Coppard in South Yorkshire. We're looking at how we can work collectively together to also take into control with GB Rail the lines from Leeds to Harrogate to York and then down south to Sheffield. It is so exciting at the moment in transport. I can't tell you, I could talk about this all day because this is the way we will grow the economy. You can't grow the economy in the UK without growing the economy in the regions, and the only way you grow the economy in the regions is to unlock that transport opportunity.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Oliver, over to you, please.
Thank you. I'm going to surprise everyone by saying almost exactly the same thing as Andy and Tracy, which is that obviously transport is a fundamental if you want growth. And in South Yorkshire, our economy has for a long time been too small. We have not had the growth that we need to see in order to help people, essentially, who live in our communities. So let me just focus on that momentarily, which is to say, it's not growth for growth's sake. It is growth because we want to offer opportunity to everybody that lives right across South Yorkshire. And South Yorkshire is a place, Barnsley, Rotherham, Doncaster and Sheffield, 1.4 million people, that is both urban and rural. And it presents its own challenges when it comes to how we connect up those communities to that opportunity. So for instance, we have the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in South Yorkshire on the site of the old Orgreave coking plant, which was once the place of the biggest industrial dispute in the history of this country. And yet that place now is the world's first, the world's best advanced manufacturing innovation districts, with Boeing, Rolls-Royce, McLaren all sited on that place. But it's got a training centre on there, which is brilliant, absolutely fantastic. It's where Boeing, McLaren and others train all their apprentices. You can go from 16 years old, being an apprentice, to 30 odd, having a PhD, fully funded. But only 1% of our population in South Yorkshire can access that site using public transport within 30 minutes. So if you live on the outer skirts of Doncaster, if you live on the other side of Barnsley, indeed if you live on the other side of Sheffield, you might as well live in Estonia if you want to be able to get there. So we've got to fix that problem if we want to give everybody opportunity, which we do. So there's an internal South Yorkshire challenge, which we are confronting rapidly. We've already taken the tram back under public control, so that's the first time in over 27 years that that's been the case. We will take a decision in the next 2 weeks on our buses. We ran the biggest per capita consultation in the country on our bus consultation, on our bus franchising measures, and that was overwhelmingly supportive of the move to franchising. So put two and two together yourselves about what that decision might look like. We're also making huge strides when it comes to active travel and what we want to do when it comes to rail in South Yorkshire, as well as tram extension to different parts of the region as well. But it's also about harnessing the USP of South Yorkshire, which is frankly our centrality to the rest of the country. South Yorkshire is right in the heart of the UK, and really that should be a massive plus for any business that wants to relocate in this country and find opportunity in this country, given the strengths we have across various different sectors. But we've not harnessed that opportunity properly. So when it comes to, as Andy already mentioned, the connectivity over to Greater Manchester on the Snake Pass, anybody that's travelled on that road recently will know the challenges there. The last government invested in the Hope Valley line, which in itself was positive, but what we need is greater capacity at either end in order to unlock that capacity in the middle. We need greater capacity up to West Yorkshire, as Tracy has already mentioned. We need more routes down to London, as well as the road network being invested in as well. So all those opportunities are really big for us. And I just want to mention the last one, which you might have heard a little bit about, which is Doncaster Sheffield Airport. So we are in the throes of trying to reopen Doncaster Sheffield Airport. You might have heard that recently Rachel Reeves and the government threw their support behind that plan, as well as other airports down south. That's a real positive for us. We want to make DSA a thriving regional airport, but we also want to grow that as a sustainable aviation hub. So a world-leading sustainable aviation centre. Sheffield University is at the forefront of sustainable aviation fuels. We have Boeing's only manufacturing facility in Europe in the region at the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation Centre. And we also have companies like hybrid air vehicles coming into the region as well. So that plan, connecting South Yorkshire not just to the rest of the country, but to the rest of the world, as well as fixing the connectivity in South Yorkshire, is all about providing that opportunity for our communities and making sure that young people in particular can stay near and go far.
Brilliant. Oliver, thank you. Now, I wanted to ask you all about, obviously, devolution and what it's actually allowed you to do differently, particularly around transport. Let me throw that open to you.
I think the key change that it brings, and there's different views about mayors and the mayoral model, but I say to areas that are saying, oh, we want devolution but we don't want a mayor, the thing is about a mayor is it brings accountability to a system that's been unaccountable to the public for far too long. If I recall when I came in 2017, people who were at bus stops saying it's late again, or the train is 10, 15 minutes late, or I can't get on because it's packed. They were quite literally shouting into the wind, to be honest. And even though I didn't have, and still don't have, all of the powers over all of the system, the fact that you've got one person there that people can say, look, this isn't good enough, this needs to be better, I think it brings accountability and focus. And I think that's starting to happen here. You can feel that. Obviously, I mentioned the brilliant job Vernon and Anne-Marie and others done, really good team beneath me, but it's that point of single contact that people have to say this system is not good enough, it should be working better for the travelling public, And that, I think, galvanises focus on the issue and the need to make things more responsive to the public. And I'm not saying, though, that means we've got all of the power that we need. We're all in the position where, Tracy mentioned it, we're being promised a statutory role over the rail system to specify service standards and fares, working with the government. We, I think, would like to take more control. That doesn't necessarily mean ownership, but of the transport assets of Greater Manchester. I look at our train stations and, over half are not accessible to disabled people. That, frankly, is shameful, is it not? That's a first order issue, and it's not been treated in an unaccountable system. It wasn't treated as a first order issue. The mayors are now saying, I chair Rail North, but with Tracy and Oliver, we're all saying the industry should make this, before you've solved nothing until you've solved that, so that all people can use the system. And that ability for us to have more control of those assets so that we can make them focal points for regeneration, I think is something that we need to work with the government on. Public transport-led regeneration, housing growth that is very much led by the existing infrastructure we have rather than always building new roads into greenfield sites. I think that's where we need to go next as we take rail into the B network. So I think, devolution has brought focus, and I think it is changing. The combined authority model is the future. It's happening quickly now. Lancashire and Cheshire and Warrington are moving quickly to that model. You need to get your head now, I think, into a world of all combined authorities in England. Tracy has been pointing out that 90% of the north of England will have a mayor by May next year. This year. And then next year, I think, is it?
It's 100% devolution.
100% will have a devolution deal by next year. Not all with the mayor, but the vast majority with one. So I think that's the world we're going into, and it's about I think, deepening it all of the while, critically giving us more ability, I think, to raise funds to support public transport rather than constantly working through the Treasury. And there are options there which we could talk about, but it is a mixture of stronger powers, greater control over funding, but then having that wider ability to link transport to place-based regeneration.
If I could just jump in as well and say that actually the mayors are leading on innovation in this space. So let's not forget, in 2022, the mayors were the ones that brought in the mayor's fare before government, the £2 fare. So leading the way on understanding in a cost of living crisis to get people back onto the buses after COVID, you've got to make it cheaper. Now, it has saved in West Yorkshire, the population of West Yorkshire, nearly £43 million on the mayor's fares. That's quite a game changer. And certainly on the doorstep, when it was my election, that is probably the one thing that people felt really had touched their lives, because obviously we haven't got back to full public control of the bus network as yet. But also the Venn diagram of responsibilities that the mayor's office has. I've been able to use our apprenticeship levy share fund to train PCSOs, 15 PCSOs, to then go on our bus network to keep people safe and for safety of women and girls, so that more people want to use the buses because they feel reassured. So money that would have gone back to the Treasury stays in our region, trains PCSOs that then go on our buses. You wouldn't have that without a strategic head who could look across all those responsibilities.
I put it into three buckets. That devolution dividend in this space goes into three categories. One, I think there's a leadership point in there, and that is both about convening, that is about speaking up for your region. The Kissinger question about when the President of the United States wants to phone Europe, although currently I'm not sure he does, but when he wants to phone Europe, who does he phone? Same for regions. Who does the government call? And increasingly, clearly, the government call us. And we have that conversation directly. So when the last government committed more than 5 times the amount of money towards the Bat Tunnel than they did to revenue funding for South Yorkshire's buses, I was straight on the phone to the government making our case. So there's a leadership point in there. I think there's an agency that you get from having a mayor, because your community can say to you, this is my problem, this is what I'm facing, this is what's going wrong, and particularly on, for instance, Trans-Pennine rail journeys, etc. That's where I think mayors have been able to step up and speak up on ticket office closures. The mayors were at the forefront of those conversations, and then just listening to the day-to-day concerns. So we're introducing free travel for under 18s in Barnsley in the next few months. So every single under 18 will have free travel right across the bus network in Barnsley. And that's because our community says, look, can't afford to get the bus, can't afford to send our kids to school, it's too expensive. And then thirdly, I'd just say that practical point around integration of our public transport network. So being able to connect up our tram network with our bus network and create that B-network style brand in South Yorkshire that allows people to feel like they are part of one place and that opportunity is everywhere for them. So those three areas are where the devolution dividend kicks in for me.
Interesting, thank you. Now, you're obviously all 150% people focused. What do you want to achieve for your constituents when it comes to transport? What are those key things, those key outcomes?
Well, that integrated London style, tap in, tap out transport offer, where you can use the rail, you can use the tram, you can use the bus, and our electric bikes that we have in Leeds and have now rolled out into Bradford. Why should we have anything less than what London has to offer? And I always say the thing about London is it has choices. So if something breaks down, or if there's a problem, somebody's on the line, you have choices. You could get a different bus, or you could get a different way to get to work, or to the creative thing you want to go see. Unfortunately, when Trans-Pennine was at its worst, when that breaks down, there are no choices at all. And there were times when I would come up from London after a meeting, it'd be late at night. I lived at the time in Slough on the Trans-Pennine route, and it was cheaper to get a hotel in Leeds than get a taxi to my house. I mean, this is absurd. So the work that we've seen on Trans-Pennine Upgrade, absolutely phenomenal, on time, on budget, huge infrastructure project, 4,000 engineers, nearly 9,000 workforce delivering that east to west electrification and widening of the route. We're going to have more choices. Now there's a few years of pain, but that idea that we can have that through station in Bradford, greater capacity in Leeds, better electrification leads to Sheffield, leads to York, better electrification. And that interconnection between the tram, where buses are delivering to the tram stops, and the tram is then helping us with the local stopping service, while you can have those fast trains that we all want between Leeds and Manchester, or Leeds and Bradford, but making sure that those communities aren't left behind in that expansion. It's a really great opportunity for this government, and I know that times are difficult, but if you want growth, you have to invest in transport. So my ask is for government to continue their investment. We've had 200 million for the tram, and we're looking in our next CRSTS another tranche of money for 27. So keep the faith, keep with us, because it can't be right that Leeds is the only city of its size without a tram network.
Oliver, thoughts?
Well, look, at the risk of sounding like a Victorian novel, pride and prosperity would be the two things that I would point to.
Very Jane Austen.
Yeah, indeed. Look, pride's probably not the thing that people most associate, is it, with transport, but in this country. But actually, I think that's one of the things that we are most invested in trying to achieve in South Yorkshire, because people do attach a huge amount of pride potentially to that transport infrastructure. We used to have a world-class bus network in South Yorkshire, and people still talk about that world-class bus network now, certainly to me, not always in glowing terms to me, but they always do say, look, we want it back. That muscle memory of knowing that you could get wherever you wanted to go, whenever you wanted to get there, through a publicly funded bus network was really important to people in South Yorkshire, the Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire. That mattered to us. So bringing back that sense of pride is really important. And that, for instance, is what the airport is about as well. Like, the amount of pride that is attached to that airport and wanting that airport back because of what it says about our place to the rest of the world that we are worthy of, an international airport that is thriving is really important to people's sense of place. So pride, and then clearly prosperity, and we talked about economic growth, but it is absolutely fundamentally true. The big catalyst for the economic growth that we want to see in South Yorkshire is going to be transport. And right now it holds back too many of the opportunities that we see, be it the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District, be it Sheffield City Centre, the revamped Barnsley Town Centre, or anything else besides. We've got to get that right if we're going to make sure that everybody in South Yorkshire can access opportunity in the way that I want them to and they want to.
Okay, all right. Of course, yeah, please do.
Just to say
something
quickly, it's firstly opportunity, I would say. The opportunity to have a quality of life or to connect to career possibilities that might not have been possible before. So let me just give you a quick example of where I live. I live in a place called Golborne, not far from Lee, my former constituency. Now, somebody who lives where I live can get to Manchester for £4 return. Because the £2 fare we introduced is now a hopper fare. So you can get a bus to Lee and get on the guided bus to Lee, and you can get to Manchester for £2, and you can then come back the same way. That opens up jobs here to people, quite honestly, who wouldn't have been able to even conceive of how they would afford to get to jobs here in Manchester city centre. And particularly people who work in the nighttime economy, with the night bus coming back through the night now. Again, it opens up opportunity to people that they didn't have before. And crucially, that point that Oliver raised about aspiration of young people. The economy of Greater Manchester has changed. You can see it yourself. You know, the skyscrapers of the city, media city, employment is not spread as it once was many decades ago. It's clustered in certain locations. I want kids to see the skyscrapers and feel that they can get to those places and they can find an opportunity there. And that's what a high quality, affordable public transport system gives you. You know, opportunity, aspiration, health, because you're encouraging people to walk and active travel. It's about everything that we all believe in terms of what we want for the people in this part of the world, that they actually have been denied for too long. I don't think people say it clearly enough. Deregulation of buses was utterly disastrous for the north of England, and actually so was privatisation of rail. It created systems that were running for private interests rather than the public interest, and we're proud as mayors to be reversing that.
Okay, Andy, thank you. So we're saying basically that place-based transport has a huge impact on social mobility. But what about regional inequality? What are your thoughts on that and the impact that place-based transport has on levelling things up?
Well, I think to Andy's point about giving opportunity, as we've discussed earlier, that making sure that wherever you live across our regions, you have access to those universities, to those skills training, those FE colleges. But let's not forget, it's not just about education and jobs, it's about how do you feel, your well-being, your sense of pride and place. So it's also about connecting to a cultural offer as well. And theatres, music, being able to think, I want to see a gig in Manchester if you live in Bradford, and think, well, I can't go because I'm never going to get home. We've got to we're working together as the Great North as well, on One Creative North, coming together as a cluster across the North, where we want our young people and all ages to be able to enjoy the creative offer that we've got here by making sure that those night buses, we've got them in between Leeds and Bradford, they're absolutely rammed, people really want them. That late night economy that is, we've got to make sure it's thriving, particularly after COVID.
Okay, Oliver or Andy, did you want to add?
I was
Either way.
just going to talk about the place-based sort of fairness, if you like, between different parts. And there's lots of towns in West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, Greater Manchester that kind of feel out of it. They've missed out, and and that creates some of the political challenges that we all face as a country, in fact. So I would just say, look at what's happened at Stockport, if you've not seen it, where we have built a new public transport interchange, but we're also building homes, particularly with under 20-somethings, but actually over 75s in mind, who might want to live in a town, a modernised town centre. See what's happened there. It's public transport-led regeneration. And we think that is absolutely the way to go to then lift some of those places that have always fell out of the system. So those 8 rail lines that I mentioned, that means 65 train stations are coming into the B network within 3 years. And we believe there is the same potential in those places to build new homes, higher density development around public transport infrastructure, particularly for 20, 30 somethings or those in retirement who want to live in a town centre, to bring a new demographic then in to live in those places, sustain the high street and the cultural offer, and then turn around those places as destinations. And I think Stockport is already proving that that model works. To pick up Tracy's point, you know, if Staley Bridge or Ashton on the route towards West Yorkshire was to follow a similar route, I think you would see exactly the same effect. We've been building for the car for too long in this country. We should start building for public transport and building the homes particularly that younger people can afford. People who actually don't necessarily want to own a car in their life. Let's really start imagining the future for them. And I think we've got the beginnings of a solution.
Yeah, someone just held up a sign that said 5, which I don't know if is a score or just a time. Don't know.
5 out of 10.
Yeah.
5 out of 10, it's fine.
It's like the diving. Right. Look,
Wait till 3 comes out.
No, yeah, it's getting worse. I'd just probably try and contrast it. Look, South Yorkshire's got a huge amount of inequality. There's no point hiding that fact. Of course we do. Like, just in terms of, for instance, health, 20-year healthy life expectancy gap between richest and poorest community. I mean, it's frankly shocking, let alone when you look at the inequality between South Yorkshire and some of the parts of this country that are particularly wealthy, like, you know, rich parts of London. And I would contrast South Yorkshire with London in this sense, because when I lived in London, as I did for a number of years, I didn't have a thought in my head about buying a car. Just didn't cross my mind, partly just the idea of adding on to the already exorbitant cost of living in London, the added cost of having a car in that place, just wasn't a practical solution for me. So I got on the bus and I used the tube and I used the trains. But just like everybody else, it wasn't a thing that meant that poor people use public transport and wealthier people use cars. It didn't feel like that. It's a really egalitarian way of travelling about. And that's what I want to get to in South Yorkshire, that everybody in South Yorkshire feels like public transport is theirs. And that for me is a fundamentally important part of this move to public control and potentially even public ownership. It's not just about saying, oh, we can make it work better, which it is, and we can cross-subsidise so those less valuable routes economically or profitably can be subsidised by the more profitable routes. It's also about saying, this is our stuff. This is our community, we own it, we control it, we make it work for our communities because that's what's good for our communities. And yes, frankly, there will be a cost attached to it. But that is to the good of all of our community and helps our economy grow more quickly and more effectively. And so getting to that point of it being an egalitarian, publicly controlled system that everyone feels they have a stake in is a really important part of this process for me.
Fantastic. Now, I've seen that we have had a 5-minute warning. I just wanted to ask you very quickly what you are most proud of. Tracy, as Mayor, what would you say you're most proud of?
I'm most proud of, I think the Mayor's Fair was a bit of a game changer for our region, but I am going to be very proud when I hold up that spade and I put it in the ground in 2028. So you are all invited to that moment.
Thank you, Tracy. Andy?
I couldn't really say anything other than the B network, could I, really? We've got our free bus pass for young people, which I did early on, which I'm very proud of. But I'm proud of what the B network is becoming. And I want to say this to those who are partners in it, because I realise some people probably in the audience who are partners. And it is actually a public-private partnership. And, you know, it is about really that spirit of the B and everything that represents, the idea that we all need to pull in the same direction together and work in the same direction. That public transport vision is becoming a reality. As I see the B network changing, I see now the operators, Go Northwest, I'll give them a shout out today, are really understanding that we've now structured this so that they pursue quality for the residents, not what we saw in the past, which was fare increases, routes being cut and everything getting more difficult. And they're really leaning in and buying in now to a system that is about constantly improving the quality. The B network is not yet where we want it to be, and we're dealing with some of those challenges. But I can confidently say, and it's always dangerous for a politician to say this, I can confidently say it will slowly get better day on day, week on week, month on month throughout the course of this year. It will be about continuous improvement. And as Oliver has been saying today, it is the B network for a reason. It speaks to that civic pride. People are still shouting at me for not bringing back orange and white buses, but for those of you in the audience of a certain age, you'll maybe one of those people who think we should have gone back to that. But obviously our vision is a system that integrates with the tram, that very much has that symbol of the B on it that says this does belong to you, this is your system, use this system, be proud of it. And we're getting really close, I think, now to having that system that we can all say, right, this is good enough for a city as amazing as this one. I don't think we're fully there yet, if I'm honest, but we are getting close to being there, and we'll absolutely take a gigantic stride on the 23rd of March towards that, but we are getting very close. And I've got Manchester Airport here represented at this event today. Here's just a final point to put in your head as to why all of this is a game changer. If you were flying into Leeds, Bradford Airport, Doncaster or Manchester Airport today, and you try and work out what the public transport system is like, imagine if you're a visitor to the UK, you will have zero clue about how to navigate this fragmented system. From the 23rd of March, we'll be able to put kind of notices in arrivals at Manchester Airport. All you need to do, look out for the B network, yellow buses and trams, tap in, tap out, and we'll calculate the lowest possible fare for you in any given day or any given week. That is a massive enhancement to the visitor experience for people coming to Greater Manchester. And I am absolutely sure that we can work with our neighbours to make sure that it's an uplift for the north of England right across.
I'm going to stop you right there because I know we've got to get you out, Andy. Oliver, we will come and ask you for your highlights. But for now, can we just thank Andy for joining us today? Tracy and Oliver will be staying with us. Thank you very much, Andy. Thank you. Oliver,
I think
sorry, go ahead.
Elvis has left the building, guys. Elvis
No, we still have our stars here. Come on. We still have our stars. Oliver, can you give us your highlights as well, please?
Yeah, that was great because I got like 5 minutes to work out what I was proudest of. So that was actually pretty helpful. Yeah, it was good. I appreciate that. Look, I'm tempted to say bringing the tram back under public control, fighting for Doncaster Sheffield Airport, because those that and the speed at which we've attacked the bus franchising question, because those are the big structural interventions which I know are going to make a big difference to our communities. But I'm actually going to talk about the free travel pilot in Barnsley, because when I was re-elected last year, I made a commitment to that pilot and said we needed free travel for under 18s in South Yorkshire. We used to have something, for those that know Barnsley, we used to have something called the My Card, and the My Card was free travel. We're talking back in 2010-ish, and it was free travel for kids. It was linked to access to opportunity for things like leisure centres, and ultimately it was killed off by austerity. And we've been able to bring that back in Barnsley and say to every kid in Barnsley, you're going to be able to get wherever you want to be there for free. And the impact that will have on cost of living for families, particularly families with 2 or more children, will be massive. And that will then contribute to the growth of the town centre, and there's been a huge amount of investment in the town centre of Barnsley. The well-being of our young people, which frankly I think has been all too often neglected since COVID. So I'm really proud that we've been able to get that done, and that is a commitment for the next 2 years. And my plan is to bring that in right across South Yorkshire as soon as we possibly can, ideally through franchising, so that we can make sure that every young person in South Yorkshire has that same level of opportunity. And that for me is the proudest thing that I could possibly do.
Fantastic, Oliver, thank you. We do have some time for questions. Can I just see where the mic is? Does anybody in our crew have the mic? We have a mic over where we have a question. Do we have a mic? Let's have a look. We have a mic. Gentleman over there in the blue suit. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Gerger Akuya. I work as a product owner at National Highways for data science products. My question is, you're mayors, you have to make lots of decisions. What is the one question or data set that you wish you had so you could make better decisions?
Such a brilliant question. Just notice how Andy Burnham left before the hard questions arrived. You notice that. Such a brilliant question, and a question that I keep on coming back to myself, and I've challenged my team to answer this question. So anyone in the room who's got a smart answer, feel free to give it me. What's the ideal price of a bus ticket? So we go through this process, and Tracy will do the same, where we are constantly confronted by our officers who there's not enough money in the system, it's really expensive to support cheaper fares. Of course it is, it's the right thing to do, but it's expensive to do it. And every time you are confronted by that question, you're challenged about the amount of revenue funding that you've got to be able to do that. And revenue funding, as we all know in buses in particular, is kind of the really hard thing. But the question is always, how much can we put it up by? And my question is, going back to my rudimentary A-level economics, I don't think that's the right question. The right question is, what's the price of a bus ticket that gets the most number of people travelling on the bus? Now, the answer that we've alighted on, particularly in Barnsley, is that it's free. But there's, I think, an answer to that question, particularly for adults, that we don't know, that I would be really interested in finding out the answer to. Now, IPPR North are already doing some work on this for me, but if anyone's got a smart way of figuring out that question, please do come and talk to me. Second point quickly as well is, and this is another area where we're doing a load of work, where are people travelling to and from? So we know to a certain extent where people get on the bus. We certainly know where they get on the tram. We don't always know where they get off, even though they might tell us where they're buying a ticket to. And we certainly don't know where they go next, and we don't know much about the journeys that they're taking and why they're taking them. Without that information, I can't potentially, when I have an integrated transport system, design that system in a way that helps grow the economy, helps people get where they need to be. So what does that system look like is not a question that's really been asked ever since we fragmented the system through privatisation. And once it's integrated again, we need to be able to answer that question pretty fundamentally and pretty quickly to be able to design and redesign a network that works for people.
And I think what was really great about a scheme that both Ollie and I took part in, which is the Harvard-Bloomberg Mayor's scheme, which is a year-long sort of mentoring. We went to New York, where we had some incredible lecturers speak to us about the challenges of leadership as mayors. And we were then invited onto a program, and we had a chance to ask Harvard to help us with some of the peskier challenges. And one of our challenges to Harvard was exactly what Ollie said, which is where are people getting on and off? We've got mobile data, but we don't have the granular data of their journey. And I'd also say the question is behavioural as well. So what do we need in order to persuade people when they've got their car key in their hand, the car is on the drive? What do we need to enable them to make the decision to take the bus and to take public transport? So I think that question has not been answered yet about where do people actually go, but also the more fundamental question is what gets them onto public transport. Now, the Clean Air Zone has been a good bit of stick, but actually the carrot in Bradford, for example, where they brought in a Clean Air Zone in the city centre, you expend a lot of political capital getting that over the line. The scrappage scheme was very generous, but the bonus for the people of Bradford is that the air quality has gone through the roof. It's much better air quality, and the number of youngsters off school because of poor breathing, asthma episodes, etc., has crashed through the floor. We have more children going to school because the air quality is better. So it is that carrot and stick, but it is understanding what are the things in people's minds that will get them onto public transport. Now, surely it's affordability, reliability, but there's more going on than that. Is it safety? Is it visibility? Is it knowing the timetable? Getting answers to those questions would be very helpful.
Tracy, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman over here on this side with his on the front row.
Don't forget, we need some questions from some women in this audience.
We absolutely do.
Sorry, I can't help with that one. Dan Kaplan, I'm Chief Executive of the Railway Industry Association. We're the trade association for rail businesses, rail suppliers around the country. And it's interesting that backstory about HS2 came out at our conference. It's still running 6 months on. And it's a scandal that we haven't got more north-south capacity, so everyone has to keep lobbying for that. My question is probably the crunchy one we haven't covered, which is if you all get what you want as mayors, you all get a patchwork quilt of different kind of systems around the country. And at the moment, in terms of rail reform and the Department for Transport, they're working with the mayors. They want to collaborate and do a consultation on how you can put rail into the national system. But how are you going to stop? What role can the mayors play to make sure you don't have winners and losers, where some parts of the country do really well out of reform, some don't, and you end up competing against each other rather than having an integrated national system, which is what we all want. We certainly want good regional services, but they have to fit into a national network. So what role can you play?
If I may very quickly say that we have to collaborate, and the northern mayors have come together under the banner of the Great North. We're working together because it can't be that money spent in West Yorkshire means we win, Ollie loses, or money spent in South Yorkshire means that we lose. We have to integrate, and that's why David and Ollie and I are looking at how we can work closely together, that interconnected rail offer. And the final piece of Yorkshire, they're getting, Hull and East Riding are getting a mayor in May. There will be 4 mayors for Yorkshire that cover the whole of Yorkshire. So I would say the losers across the country will be where people don't necessarily have a mayor, have chosen not to have a mayor, because this is the direction of travel from government. Devolution is not going back in the box anytime soon. And I think government are looking to empower mayors to sit alongside GB Rail and to work out these challenges. Because, of course, people in Leeds also want to go to Newcastle. They want to go across to Liverpool. They want to go south to London and to Bristol. So it's about us all working collectively together on that common agenda to grow the economy.
Yeah, well, let me take that argument on directly, because the argument you've just articulated is frankly the argument against devolution. It's the argument we hear all too often from some people in government, certainly in the last government, less so now, but certainly in the civil service. The idea that devolution will lead to a patchwork quilt and inequality. And it is a fundamentally flawed argument, because we are one of the most centralised countries in the Western world, certainly in the OECD, and yet in this country we have a greater inequality between North and South than they have in Germany. So the idea that centralisation somehow stops you from having inequality and unequal access to opportunity, or the fact that West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire don't have completely different economies or transport systems, certainly from London, is just fundamentally flawed in my view. So yes, absolutely, it's something we have to work at as we go through this process of devolution, when we put in systems in place for rail or bus or anything else in South Yorkshire, and make sure that we are working with Tracy, Andy and everybody else. But the idea that we can't do that is, I think, for the birds. Of course we can do that. We have to work at it, of course, but I think we're much more likely to bring in that more connected system, integrated system, and more effective system, because Tracy and I and Andy and everybody else are working already closely together, than this government is going to be able to do from Westminster, trying to make that work from 250 miles away.
Okay. We have time for one very quick question and a quick answer from the woman here at the front. Thank you.
Hi, Claire Stocks. I work for the Combined Authority here in Manchester. Every area needs more investment, and you've articulated that case really well. But if all the mayors in the north had to pick one thing to persuade the government that would benefit the whole of the north, what would that be?
I would say mass transit, because it is a locally delivered project of national significance.
One thing that would benefit the whole of the north. Look, certainly Doncaster Sheffield Airport is right up there, right clearly, but let me say something which probably fits more into that category that I think you're asking about, and it's the electrification of the Midland Main Line. So actually that's our version of HS2, quite honestly. So coming up to Sheffield and then allowing us through Yorkshire to connect up in a way which, quite honestly, the east side of the Pennines hasn't had a focus on in the same way as maybe the West Coast Main Line. I think for me that's the priority, and has to be the priority for the whole of the north, indeed the whole of the country.
Okay, Andy, Tracy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm sorry it's been so brief. There's so many great questions I know that have been out there, but let's thank them. And Oliver, Coppard and Tracy Brabin, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.